Hello and welcome to my C10 build. This is my 1977 Chevy short box step side that I've had for a little over probably about 22 years now. Was my son's high school rig, drove it to work, or drove to school, drove it to work, and then eventually it sat around forever, and a few years back we did some work on it, started drag racing it, and it's kind of been a work in progress since then. I recently was kind of tearing it down. I'll go into some of that in detail, but I didn't really want to bore anybody with the teardown part of it. It's fairly straightforward. Take notes, mark your bolts and connectors as they come off. Doesn't really make for that entertaining a video unless you do it in fast motion, and this was more of a slow motion thing that I did over an extended period of time. But we're trying to get it back together. We have a deadline. We want to have it back on the track in the spring, so I've got about 3 months to do what I'm going to do on this, and wanted to share what I was doing, kind of what my thought processes were, and what the end goal was, and kind of share that with you in the opening video, and then as I get into more and more of the details, try to share those in future videos. I spent quite a bit of time on YouTube researching a lot of things. There's some really good information on there, but I have a different approach to this, and I hope that I don't offend any of the purists. I have the utmost respect for people that restore vehicles, and all of those that want to keep them in original states or restore them back to the factory original. I ordered a truck like this in 1976. There was a article in Hot Rod magazine called The Last Cowboy Cadillac, and I went down Chevrolet and I wanted one bad. It was a big block, bucket seats, every factory option, and unfortunately I did not get my order in time, and it came in as a 77, less power, single exhaust. It just wasn't the same vehicle, and so I ultimately did not take delivery of it, and then hated myself for a long time afterwards. So I seen this truck. My son and I bought it and worked on it together. It's been a family project since we've had it, but I want to do something different on it. We started drag racing it. I had a fairly mild 350 in it. This is the new motor for it, and I'll go into some of the build on that. But we started out, I think it was running high 16-second quarters, single, one wheel peel, no slicks, no traction, something highway gears, just not a good drag racing combo. And so we've done multiple things with it, over the past 6-7 years. And the last time it was on the track, it was running solid and consistent 14.0s. And so that's kind of where we left off. And I really didn't have a target in mind when we started working on it again, but I knew there was a bunch of stuff that I wanted to do on the truck. And the truck it's in decent shape. There's a little bit of rust. All of this that you see is just surface rust on the frame. There's no pitting anywhere. I've got a little bit of rust in a few areas on the frame underneath that I'm going to try to repair, and I'll go into some detail on that. But the real goal was, I don't live too far from the track. I don't really want it as a commuter. I really wanted it as a street race truck, type truck. And so I kind of took the old Harley Davidson chopper, approach to it, and that was, if it didn't make it go faster, it didn't need to be on there. And so again, not to offend the purist, or any disrespect to people that are trying to restore these to original, but I'm really not, that's not my approach. What I want is a super clean, low 12, high 11 second truck that runs on pump gas that I can drive to the track. And so, here's kind of my plan for doing that. One of the big things that I'm after is weight reduction, and I'm happy to share all of this, in the videos as we go. And so I track some of the bigger components, and if you look at the third column there where it says F minus means that it's towards the back of the truck, on the other side of the firewall. An F plus would be in front of the firewall, and an F with no minus or plus would be at the firewall. And so I've been measuring some of the bigger items. This truck started out at 3760 was the first time that I weighed it, and that was before I put the lightweight wheels on it, pulled the compressor, the AC compressor, some of the bigger things. The last time I ran it at the track, we were running at 3,540 pounds. I currently, with what's listed on here, this is minus 304 pounds. And it still has a complete interior in it, which, is coming out too. And so the goal is hopefully to, try to get this down into about 3,200 pounds with me in it, and fuel and everything. That's kind of our goal. And the new motor is right at 500 horsepower. Again, it's a pump gas stroker motor, but we're hoping to make 500 plus on both the horsepower and torque. It's not a super high rever. Again, I have to drive this to the track. And so I'll show you a couple of the details, but I'm not encouraging anybody to do this. Please be safe. I'm not advocating, that you do this illegally, or, I don't have any issues with law enforcement, don't want any. And this truck really isn't meant to be flying down the freeway or anything. So I have about 5 miles of highway that I have to run down to get to the track. And about 12 miles total, the rest of it being on back roads. And so I want to just go over, not in detail, but just kind of some of my general things that either bother me, annoy me, or things that need to be changed. One of the things is that we've, lowered the truck. I put 2.5-inch drop spindles on it and 2-inch drop springs, and all of the bushings and everything have been replaced in the front. And so we are about, with it fully loaded before, not since the weight reduction, but before, I was only about 3 inches of ground clearance on the A-arms. And so I've put a little bit taller tire on there, which is gonna, hopefully give me a little more clearance. But one of the things that is not good is this front shock placement. When this is loaded and all the sheet metal engines on it, these shocks are almost bottomed out. In fact, they do bottom out now. And so those are going to get relocated to the top. I kind of had to pull the inner fenders because the tires were bottoming out against the bottom of the inner fender. So, that's one of the things that had to be addressed. So I'll be relocating the shocks. I'll show you how to do that in the video and what I used. Don't really need power steering on a drag race truck. It's really convenient, it's comfortable, but it adds a lot of weight. And this was a double pulley system. This truck originally had air conditioning on it. And again, we're pulling so much weight off of it that I really don't think we need the power steering. Also, this unit is original to the truck. It probably has over 200,000 miles on it, so there's a little bit of slack in the steering. So I'm just going to replace that with a rebuilt manual steering. Other than that, the front is complete. I did make a custom roll pan for the front, which required me to cut the frame horns back. I'll go into that a little more detail later on another video, but this is the replacement. It's kind of a combination bumper looking thing that's in the works, and you know, it's something that again wasn't available. And so a lot of stuff that I'm going to try and cover in the video are things that you know, either couldn't find the parts or I couldn't find a way to do it the way I wanted to. And so I'm kind of sharing my solution to those problems. The back is a little bit different. I put the Caltrax on it. This truck initially had a 9-spring pack on it, which was ridiculous. 4 guys jumping up in the down in the bed wouldn't even move it a half of an inch. So I'm down to 3 leaves at this point, and I'm going to have to C-notch the frame. When this is all loaded, I have about 2 inches clearance to the frame, which isn't really enough, and so I'll C-notch the frame. But the other thing that's going on back here is that this thing is just so wide and so bulky. I'm kind of limited to tire size. Right now I've got about 12 inches of side-to-side clearance, you know, from the leaf spring out to the bedside, and I really want to go with a bigger tire and wheel combination. Right now this is unloaded, so the truck's up about 4 inches higher than it normally would be, but you can see the shock angles as it sits right now are at 50 degrees, and so they're basically, everything is kind of binding up. It's not really working well. The truck was launching okay. My 60-foot times were, you know, in the 1.8 range. You know, didn't have any real hop, but I was only running about 270 horsepower, the rear wheels. So we're stepping that up quite a bit, and I'm not sure, you know, how much this can take. But one of the things that I want, you know, my vision of this truck is I love the old pro street look. And so I want to go with a monster tire under there, you know, 15-inch wide wheels, you know, something that, you know, really sets it off. I'll run the skinnies up front, but that's kind of the look that I'm after. I want to get it as low as possible without cutting the frame. I'm kind of limited on the front. I already know what the front is. We're running about, previous to what I was doing on it, the front fenders were from the pavement up to the bottom of the lip was 26 inches. So it's just probably about as much as I can get without doing something totally different. The back, as it's set up right now, was still about 2.5 inches higher than the front. And so I'm in the process of reworking this rear assembly, and I'll cover that in some detail. But I want to move the spring rails. I want to move the leaf springs parallel with the frame, and so those will get moved in about 6 inches, and they don't really have a lot of you know, parts for doing this. I know everybody's gonna say just put a 4-link in it. I looked at that. Also, as part of my philosophy is I just really don't have excess money. I want to spend my money where, you know, on other things. And so I'm going to kind of re-engineer the back of this and move these leaf springs in parallel with the frame. That'll give me 20 inches of clearance, so I can run some big tires under there. And that's about it. I just wanted to kind of introduce everybody to my project. And then I'll be doing some individual videos, shorter ones on you know, basically the whole build. I'm going to try and do all of this work myself. I've done everything so far I've done by myself at home. I had to have some machine work done on the engine, but I assembled it myself. and I'll be completing that and making some video on that. I'll go into the wiring, the braking, you know, everything else that I do from this point forward. I'll try to capture that. And again, my intent really is just to share this with people. You know, I couldn't find the answers to a lot of the stuff I was looking for. And so, you know, the idea, you know, behind doing this is really to show you, you know, how I was able to solve it, or just give you another option, you know, as far as solutions. You know, try to make it look better, you know, go faster, without compromising the safety, and end up with something that is, you know, very cool looking, but just a little smoother than the original. And so that's the goal. Thanks for watching, and I'll be posting more in future.